announcing that I'd cripple myself financially for the next year.
That would lead me to revealing how I escaped, retired early, and how you can too.
My eyes were really opened up to the possibilities of making mass income.
But there's a problem. The system is rigged against you.
The worst thing of all is no one really wanted to talk about money. It was so taboo.
Hi guys, it's Mark. So, I've got some news for you. Retiring with enough money to enjoy the rest of your life, sitting on a beach sipping on whatever your heart desires, is becoming near enough impossible. Every year consumer debt rises, owning a home becomes more challenging, and everything is getting more expensive. This combined with supply chain shortages, the Russian-Ukraine war, and an outdated school system is a recipe for disaster. Let me take you back to 1902 when one of the richest men in history, John Rockefeller, created the school system as we know it today. As you can probably imagine, this system wasn't created to help people become rich and successful like him. Oh no, no, no. It was invented to create a nation of workers. You see, Rockefeller was an oil tycoon that needed an army of people that worked hard and didn't ask questions. So what better way to achieve his goal than funneling kids down a controlled path with little individual treatment, strict deadlines, and teachers enforcing the rules.
The idea that becoming an entrepreneur and following my dreams was even possible. My teachers never really understood me, which meant I found school extremely boring. The worst thing of all is no one really wanted to talk about money. It was so taboo. After leaving this place, I initially went down the carpentry route, making wooden trash cans for only a few dollars an hour.
This probably sounds all too familiar, and this broken system is the main reason why people can't retire. I'm not bashing schools or even the teachers, but the fact that school still doesn't teach basic money management, investing, or even building a credit score is just crazy to me. So you turn 18 and leave school with little understanding of how money works and look for a job, only to find 70% of jobs never get listed, meaning it's not what you know, it's who you know. This makes finding a job all the more difficult. But none of that really matters because slimy credit card companies are putting pre-approval letters through our doors, giving us instant access to cash at 40% interest rates, with no consideration of the fact that the majority of the population don't know what APR even means, let alone how to use a credit card correctly. As you can probably tell, that really grinds my gears. Because of this, it's no surprise that consumer debt is over $15 trillion and rising almost every year. The world is changing so fast that school probably couldn't keep up even if it tried. Bitcoin was created in 2009 and it's only now becoming something people talk about as an investment, even though it's been the best performing asset of the last decade. It's very difficult to get ahead and save money with low income, especially at the moment with 8.3% inflation and supply chain shortages. It's not a coincidence that fuel and utility bills are at record-breaking highs and the people are feeling this hit more than ever. So the system is clearly rigged against you. However, I came from nothing and escaped, and so can you. This might look like a normal train to you. However, this is the exact spot I sat when I had a revelation about money that would change my life forever. After leaving school at 16, I got a job as a carpenter's apprentice. That required me to commute on the train every day. I remember one morning looking around the carriage at all the passengers, both young and old, and I noticed they had one thing in common. They all looked miserable. It was clear that not a soul was looking forward to going to work. It was almost like being on a ghost train full of slaves. I felt sorry for them until I realised I too was wearing the same unhappy expression. I was one of them. But why was I so unhappy? Well, it all boiled down to my finances. Although it's a very popular saying that money doesn't make you happy, I think that was probably said by someone that has never been broke. Money certainly gives you freedom, and the lack of freedom was the main reason why all of us were so unhappy on the train that day. I was only getting paid $2 an hour, and from that I had to pay $15 per week for my train ticket and a further $15 to my mum for rent. I had very little left at the end of the week. I thought to myself, why am I working so hard and still getting nowhere? Then I realised I'd taken my eye off the ball. I was getting so wrapped up in going through the motions and doing what I was told that I'd forgotten to manage my money correctly and set goals. When people don't have solid financial goals, they turn into mindless zombies, living for the weekend and never getting ahead. This is when I discovered the times 25 rule, although it probably wasn't called that back then. I pictured what my perfect life would look like and then how much money I would need to live like that per year. I then multiplied that by 25, which gave me my freedom figure. This is the amount of money I'd need saved so that I could fund my life by withdrawing 4% from my investments per year. This is something everyone should do, as it really put things into perspective for me. I became obsessed with doing everything I could to make progress towards this number. I used to do lots of overtime. This is because over 12 hours, I got paid double my usual rate. My friends always used to work just a 9-to-5 job and then go down the pub. They never desired any extra income as they didn't have a solid freedom figure. I also started tracking all of my income and outgoings with a pad and pen. Nowadays, there's lots of different apps that can help you with this. But here's the best part of all. I no longer felt like a slave as I had a clear direction and an escape plan.
But things weren't plain sailing from then. A few months later, I was on this very roadside. I was head in hands, realising that I'd cripple myself financially for the next year.
You see, I was young and I wanted a nice car, so I bought a green Volkswagen Golf because everyone said it would be a good idea. Don't get me wrong, a VW Golf is a great car and I loved it, but the issue is I took out a loan for the car, which had a really high interest rate. This kind of purchase is typically always a bad investment.
I didn't care about this at the time, well, until I was stood at this roadside with a blown up engine. This left me in a right state because I still had monthly car payments to make, and now I had a $1,200 bill on top to repair the engine.
I'm thankful for moments like this one, as it's the hard life lessons that make you realise something has to change. I had car loans, repair bills, credit card debt and more at the time, so I thought outside of the box and decided to use what is now known as the debt avalanche method. The idea is you use your paycheck to make the minimum payments on every single bit of debt you have. Then use the remainder of your spare cash to pay the debt with the highest interest rate. Rinsing and repeating this method and taking one step at a time is the most effective way to clear debt fast, and can also save you a fortune by clearing the highest interest rates first. It took me a whole year of using this method to get back on my feet, but I'm glad I put that chapter behind me.
I then bumped into a man right here in this very field who had changed my life forever. As a youngster, it is so easy to get complacent about retirement. Look, I get it. When you're 20 or even younger, it's not that easy to get excited about retiring at 65. If that sounds like you, then don't worry. I was exactly the same. However, I was very fortunate because the man I met on this model flying field became a role model to me. I didn't even know he was my mentor. During casual chats, he managed to completely change my mindset by swapping the word retirement with the word freedom.
This really resonated with me, as I've always chased freedom over materialistic things like cars and drip. With my eyes set on freedom, I knew I had to begin investing long term and start building my wealth. So I opened a pension account and began investing 10% of my standard wage. Of course, nowadays you'd open up a Roth IRA if you're in the USA, or a stocks and shares ISA if you're in the UK. These are essentially investing accounts that allow you to grow your money over time completely tax-free. However, there are limits on the amount you can deposit because otherwise they'd just be too powerful. Investing 10% of my income was a huge step in the right direction. It shifted my focus towards not only making more money, but having my money produce more income. By the way, if you want to start investing, then Public.com are currently giving you a free stock slice worth between $3,000 and $1,000 when you use my link in the description. It's a great way to kickstart your investing journey.
So at this point, I was debt-free and I was also investing, but I was still working every hour under the sun for other people, but I couldn't shift
multiple shops and warehouses. Then, almost overnight, the internet made it irrelevant. I had two choices: give up or adapt. You know me, I wasn't about to quit, so I threw myself into learning everything about making money online. And like most people today, I fell for the hype. I tried every method out there, and guess what? None of them were as easy as people said. But through trial and error, I cracked the code and rebuilt my businesses, but this time with the internet at the core of my strategy. Fast forward to today, and making money online isn't just important, it's an essential thing everyone should be doing. That's exactly why I'm making this video. I've spent years testing, failing and refining, losing millions, making millions and learning what actually works. Now with this knowledge, I can help you avoid all the mistakes and fast track your success. So if you're tired of false promises and ready to commit for the next 6 to 12 months and build something real, this is for you. No gimmicks, no BS, just the process that actually works. All right, so this is the online wealth wheel. And whether you realize it or not, you're already on it. There are 3 main stages that define where people are in their journey to making money online, plus a secret 4th stage that only a few ever reach. We'll discuss that one at the end. Let's kick things off with stage 1. This is where everyone starts with no side hustle. And sadly, 55% of people never start at all. Inflation is making everything more expensive. And let's be real, relying on a single paycheck is more dangerous than ever. So if having a side hustle is essential, why do 55% of people still avoid it? Because the online space is a jungle. It's full of ads pushing proven methods that confuse more people than they actually help. The key to starting the right way is picking a method that suits your skills, budget and lifestyle. If you already have a skill like video editing, graphic design, coding, or even setting up Discord servers, people pay great money for these services and there's no shortage of demand. But what if you don't have a skill to sell, or quite simply don't want to deal with clients? That's where product-based businesses come in. One of the best options is selling products online without ever holding inventory yourself. But I'll get into this in more detail later on. That brings me on to running a failing side hustle. I'm classing a failing side hustle as earning less than $50 per month online. Sadly, 28% of people are trapped here. A lot of people aren't going to like me saying this, but it has to be said. It's almost never your side hustle that's flawed or doesn't work. You're most likely just not putting enough time and effort in. I know that can be hard to hear, but this isn't really your fault. It's down to something called shiny object syndrome. This is when you constantly jump from one trendy online money-making method to another without committing and putting your absolute all into any of them. One week it's drop shipping, then print on demand, then selling books on Amazon KDP, then trading stocks, and then starting a social media agency. The truth is, all the online money-making methods I just mentioned work, but each requires a different level of time commitment, and you'll never get anywhere by jumping from one to the other. It's like that classic diagram of miners tirelessly digging for gold, only to give up just before striking it rich. Instead of pushing through, they abandon their progress, start fresh somewhere else, and waste all that initial effort repeating the cycle over and over again. If you get stuck in this dangerous pattern like the 28% of other people, then you need to recognize it and simply pick a method and stick to it. Forget the idea of a perfect side hustle. Just pick one that's easy to start and has the potential to scale. If you don't have a high income skill to sell, then I'm going to make this super simple for you. In all my years of experience, the thing that has made me the most amount of money online is e-commerce. So I recommend you focus on that, but not in the way most people do. A lot of beginners assume starting an online store means dealing with inventory, suppliers, or complex setups, but that's not the case anymore. That's because you can now utilize AI-built Shopify stores. Instead of spending weeks setting everything up like I had to back in the day, you can now use a free tool called BuildYourStore.ai to launch a fully automated store that would normally cost $200 to $300 to set up, but this does it for free in a matter of minutes. You just enter your name and email, pick a niche like fashion, tech or pets, and the AI chooses winning products, designs your store and makes it look professional from day one. If you want to go through this process completely for free, then just click the link in the description and it'll walk you through everything. From there, it syncs directly with Shopify, giving you exclusive access to a 3-month Shopify trial for only $1 per month. But what about making sales? Well, the biggest mistake people make with e-commerce is giving up too soon. Surprise, surprise. This is probably because they don't want to deal with inventory or fulfillment. That's why the free AI store builder also walks you through how to integrate a tool called AutoDS, which is kind of like the autopilot system on a plane. It imports trending products, updates pricing and images, and even ships orders directly to your customers. This means you don't have to touch inventory, package anything, or deal with supplier negotiations. You focus on driving traffic and making sales while the system handles the rest. Full disclosure, AutoDS are long-term supporters of this channel, but even if they weren't sponsoring this portion of the video, I'd still recommend them. You can easily create a buzz around your products by creating videos about them on TikTok for free. If you get 100k views and just 1% of the people go and buy your product for $10, then that's $10,000 in revenue. So if you're serious about breaking out of the failing side hustle trap, then choosing a simple automated model like this gives you the best chance at success. No more bouncing between business ideas, just commit, launch, and put in the work to scale it up. Stage 3 is running a successful side hustle. Believe it or not, only 16% of people who start making money online ever make more than $50 per month. The people in this percentile make anywhere from $51 on the low end all the way up to $10,000 a month. Of course, the higher end is what I'd consider actually successful. So what are these 16% of people doing differently, and how can you start applying it to yourself? Well, there's some clear things that I've noticed that separate the people who struggle from those who actually make money online. And to help you get there, I'm going to break them down into 4 key steps that you can follow. Step 1 is to stop trying to appeal to everyone. You might think casting a wide net will get you more sales, but in reality, it does the opposite. If you try to appeal to everyone, you'll appeal to no one. So before you even start promoting your store, grab a notepad or open your notes app and describe
money I made. There's also a bit of a twist because I've invited a guy called Tom round who's never invested in his life. He doesn't have a job right now and he's been finding things really a little bit tough. While he thinks he's coming around for a simple how to invest for beginners tutorial, I've got a surprise planned for him. I'm actually going to give him some money to jumpstart his investing journey, as I would really have appreciated that at his age. If you like this idea and you want me to do it with more people, then make sure to smash that like button to let me know. I'm really excited for this one. I can't wait to see his face. He'll be arriving any minute now. So we're here with Tom. How are you?
I'm not too bad, yeah. Very difficult time at the minute. You know, I've been looking for a new career path and a new job.
I know you've spoken a little bit about it being interested in investing.
Yeah, I am very interested, but I don't know that much about it actually. I mean, I've been watching a lot of your videos, my friends have been watching a lot of your videos and they've actually started investing, so I'd like to give it a try.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good to know because that's what we're trying to push out, to get young people investing early. So Tom, we've made a video recently where I invested $100 into lots of different investments, and during this video we're going to see how those investments went. Should we dive straight in?
Definitely.
Let's do it. So this is the first investment. This is a high interest savings account and we invested $100 and at the moment that's had a return of 0.04%. And the reason it's lower than when we started is because they lowered the interest rate. So our profit is 4 cents.
4 cents? That doesn't seem like a lot. Why would I invest in that?
So this investment isn't about the interest you're going to gain, because nowadays it's really hard to find a really high interest savings account. The real reason one of these is so valuable is because you can use it as a backup fund, and you should have in there around about 4 to 5 months of your living expenses.
Why would I need that?
Well, the reason is because if you have an emergency in your life, I mean, you might have a flat tire on the car or the engine in the car might blow up, whatever the reason, you've got the cash to hand to be able to sort that problem out immediately without having to go and borrow the money, which is going to cost you a high amount of interest.
So basically, it's not about the money you make, it's about the money you save.
You've got it. Something a lot of people don't know, but 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So by doing this, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
Well, that's where I want to be.
The second investment we made was into gold.
Oh, I love a bit of gold.
Well, we all like a bit of gold, and we invested $100 into this. The return on this was minus 0.98%, which means we lost 98 cents.
So why would I invest in something that loses money?
Because it protects you against inflation.
What's inflation?
Well, think of it this way. This dollar has actually lost 95% of its value since 1913. And that's why your grandma and your grandparents always say they could buy so much more with their money when they were younger.
Well, that makes sense, but how does that link to gold?
Well, that's actually an easy one, because as your dollar loses value, gold generally goes up in value. So by investing your dollar in gold, you're keeping it a lot safer.
Well, how come you lost money?
Well, because the gold market always fluctuates. So gold basically moves in the opposite way to inflation. As inflation goes up, the price of gold goes up.
I never really thought about it like that. You just buy blocks of gold?
Well, you can do that, but I prefer to invest into ETFs and ETCs, which means you can buy and sell gold much, much easier.
So what's an ETF?
An ETF is an exchange traded fund, which means they hold the gold for you. You don't have to physically hold it and put it in a safe or anything like that. They store it all over the world, and there are billions stored up, and you can actually buy and trade it on the stock market.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
So just to finish this section off, gold is a very, very rare thing. You can't make any more of it. Well, you can, but it's too expensive to make it, so you wouldn't. So it won't lose value the same way that money will. Unless, of course, Elon Musk finds a great big meteor that's full of gold, of course, and he might do that. Investment number 3 was an S&P 500 index fund, and we invested again $100. Our return was 1.84%, which gave us a profit of $1.84.
Well, that's a good profit, but what's an index fund?
Owning a stock is like owning one cow, whereas owning an index fund is like having the whole herd. So imagine if you own just that one cow and it dies, you're out of milk. But if you own a small piece of all the herd, then if one dies, it really doesn't affect you. For example, what we chose is the S&P 500, which is the 500 top companies in the USA, such as Amazon, Apple, and now even Tesla.
So I can invest in all these companies in one go?
Yeah, you certainly can, and the fees are really low because it's passively managed. They don't have experts managing all the different stocks. And pretty low risk because it's diversified over all these different companies.
So I'm not going to lie, Mark, but you're only making a profit of $1. Why should I care?
Well, the thing here is that $1.84 is only over a month and a half. And if you actually invested $100 at 8% growth per year over 45 years, you would have over $500,000 in your account.
That sounds amazing.
And do you know what? That $100 a month can just be by having a few less coffees from Starbucks or doing a side hustle. It's easily found and invested into an index fund every month. Investment number 4 is in a REIT, and that stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And we've invested again $100. Our value has actually dropped by 0.4%, which is a bit of a pain, but we did get a dividend, which is really cool, of 57 cents, which means we are actually in profit by 11 cents.
So what's a REIT?
So imagine you've gone round and you've borrowed lots of money from all your friends, and you've got enough now to go and buy a property, and you rent it out. And of course, because you're a nice guy, you split all that rent with your friends.
So that dividend, is that a share of the rent?
Yeah, that's spot on. And it's from things like offices, hotels, things like that are owned by commercial companies. And because they have to sign such long leases, it's a really secure income.
So this is how I can get into real estate without buying a property?
Yeah, think of it a bit like, I own the front door, you might own a window, your other mates might own half a dozen bricks. So you all own a little bit of it and then get paid the rent in return.
I've always wanted to go into property, so this could be my way in.
Investment number 5 is sort of my bread and butter. It's business, buying and selling. And I actually did some research and found a model engine that was underpriced, which I then sold on eBay. And also the guy gave me a model aeroplane as well, which I sold. So we made a profit of 67.87.
Why is the risk level 4 out of 10?
Well, this relies on your knowledge of the things that you're buying and selling, because if you can find the right things, you can make money from them.
I'm really into Star Wars.
Well, Star Wars toys are worth quite a lot of money, and if they're in their packets, you could earn a fortune from them.
All right, you piqued my interest. Where would I look for these things?
Well, Facebook Marketplace is great, and also eBay. And I often look for mistyped titles, and that way you can get yourself a bargain. And sometimes people don't photograph the things very well, so they're going to go for a lower price.
I better get myself a bargain then.
And the great thing with this is you can repeat the process over and over again. One guy went from a paperclip to an entire house. Investment number 6 is Samsung individual stock. And we chose this stock by having a dartboard on the wall. And we had 20 randomly selected companies around it, and we landed on Samsung.
So this was a completely random investment?
Yeah, and as you can see from $100, we've actually made a return of 19.4%, which is actually $19.43.
Wow, so that's with a risk level of 6.5?
Yep, so the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Would you say luck was involved in your dart throw?
It was lucky I hit the board, not only blindfolded, I didn't have my glasses on either, so it's a Absolute wonder. Of course, luck and timing is always a critical part of stock investing. Of course, you can do it without throwing a dart at the board because you can do fundamental analysis.
What's fundamental analysis?
So that's when you look at the financial statements and balance sheets and also the leader of the company. And this can all be found on Yahoo Finance if you're interested.
So what's the best way to get started?
Well, if you deposit $100 on Webull, they'll give you 4 free stocks at the moment. I'll leave the link below. And for you, Tom, I'm going to leave a link for Trading 212. If you want to pick up a free stock, that's fine if you're in the UK or Europe.
Free stock for nothing? Count me in.
Investment 7 is crypto, and we decided to invest in Bitcoin. We invested $100 as before, and we got a return of plus 98%. So in a month, we've made nearly 100% of our money back.
That's amazing. So are these actual coins?
No, they're not actual coins, but they're digital coins. The great thing with Bitcoin is it's decentralized, so it's not actually controlled by any government. And this puts some people at ease because the banks can't control their money.
So can I spend this Bitcoin?
Yes, and more businesses are actually accepting Bitcoin now, and the more that do, the more the value goes up. And remember, this dollar, it's just losing its value because they're just printing more and more. And that won't happen with Bitcoin because there's a limited supply.
But I heard about Bitcoin. They're making them all the time.
Well, actually, they're just mining them, and they're finding all the little bits that are out there. And once they're all found and they're all mined, that's it. There's no more. And that'll probably happen in the 22nd century.
So that's quite a lot.
Just get a 9-to-5 job, save your money, work until you're 65 and finally retire when you're too old to enjoy it. Luckily, one of the businessmen I looked up to explained it in a slightly different way. He said the word retirement should be replaced with the word freedom, because once you reach a tipping point when you have enough money to stop working, you have true freedom. Every day you can do exactly what you want, no questions asked. Maybe that's relaxing on a beach, sipping a pina colada, or building businesses that change the world like Elon Musk. When you have the ability to retire, it's entirely up to you how you spend your time. So on that note, today we're going to discuss the plan I use to reach my retirement goal in my late 20s, starting from $0. This may be a little extreme for some people, but that's just me. I'm either 100% in or I'm not in at all. Obviously, you can take this plan at your own pace, and who knows, maybe you'll even beat me. We'll get into all of this right after you hit that like button for the LTube algorithm, as it really helps push this video to more people. Also, make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. Phase 1 is all about your freedom figure. This is the target that you have to reach in order to have full control of your life. This is something you should know even if you've got $0 in the bank. If you don't know your freedom figure, then it's a bit like being blindfolded in a running race. You can't see where you're going, so you may end up putting all your efforts in going in the wrong direction, or even tripping up and falling flat on your face. The reality is there are 3 types of people in this world. There are doers, dreamers and drifters, otherwise known as the 3 Ds. Actually, thinking about it, when I was at school they gave me a cap with D on it. They must have known I was a doer. So let's start off with drifters. They go through life living paycheck to paycheck without any financial aims. They don't really see the point of saving or investing money, as retirement feels like it's not something a young person needs to be thinking about. Dreamers do have financial goals, but they don't have any plans in place to actually achieve them. So they will forever just stay dreams. And finally, doers. They have financial goals, but most importantly have a plan to reach them. And that's where your freedom figure comes in. This is a very individual thing, and it all depends on how much you want to pay yourself each year when you retire. There's actually a great way to figure this out, and it's called the times 25 rule. So let's firstly assume you want to make $50,000 per year without working. Secondly, we would need to multiply 50,000 by 25, which gives us $1.25 million. The idea is that you're able to withdraw 4% of this per year without ever running out of money. And you guessed it, 4% of $1.25 million is $50,000. $1.25 million? How am I ever going to get that in 7 years? This video's a lie. I know this may sound tough, especially if you're starting from $0, but it is possible. No one said it's going to be easy, but with the right approach, it can be done. I mean, if I can do it, then so can you. In the early stages of your retirement plan, the way you think about money is crucial. It's all about getting the right mindset in place. The key is to prioritize building wealth over cash flow. This is because building wealth is about locking your money away in assets that increase in value, whereas cash flow gives you more money flowing into your pocket. Now this may sound great, but it can lead to a variety of problems such as lifestyle inflation and sky-high taxes. Cash flow is extremely important, but more so later in life once you start to unwind. This is why whenever I made some extra cash when I was younger, I made sure to reinvest the majority of it. Of course, I get it, sometimes it can feel really nice to secure some profit and lock it away in your bank account. It can give you a false sense of security knowing you've got all your money sat in your account for whenever you need it. But the reality is you often don't need as much money as you think. Forming a habit of reinvesting your cash flow is absolutely essential when it comes to building wealth as fast as possible and hitting your freedom figure. Phase 2 is laying the foundations. This is kind of like building a house. You need to lay a solid foundation to ensure your house doesn't crumble at the first sign of an earthquake. Unfortunately, 70% of millennials now live paycheck to paycheck, which means they're building their lives on an unstable base, just like building a house on quicksand. If you find that unbelievable, then this is even more shocking. 40% of Americans with an income greater than $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. This just goes to show how important laying the foundations are, and even though it may seem simple, many people are failing at this phase. There are 4 stages I considered when I was in this phase during my early 20s. The first stage is paying off high interest debt. It's crucial to pay this off before you even consider investing your money, as high interest debt is holding you back. But saying this, it is very important to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is anything low interest that makes you money. For example, the mortgage on a rental property or low interest finance on a laptop to build an online business. Bad debt is high interest debt that doesn't make you any money. For example, shopping for clothes on buy it now, pay later, credit card debt, or even a typical bank loan. All of this debt needs paying off as soon as possible. I was in quite a lot of debt when I was 18, and in order to get out of it, I used the debt avalanche method, which involved making the minimum payments on all my high interest debt. Then I used any extra money to pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first, which was my store credit card at 32%. Crazy, I know. Signing up for that was a huge mistake, which I've talked about in some of my past videos. I then worked my way through the bad debt with the lowest interest rate, which was my car loan at around 15% at the time. Within a year, I'd managed to get everything paid off. The big lesson here is you can't invest to build wealth when being weighed down by bad debt. Stage 2 is putting aside an emergency fund. This is essential for your foundations, because if you start investing without an emergency fund, you might find a few months down the line you get into a spot of bother with an unexpected expense and no cash to pay for it. You will then have to pull your investments out to cover the expense, and then you'll miss out on the potential profits. Stage 3 is building a great credit score. A credit score is a bit like your resume. It follows you around in life, is regularly updated, and it helps lenders decide whether you're a worthy borrower. Having a good credit score is especially important if you ever want to get a loan in the future. For example, to buy your dream house. You just never know when you're going to need it. I should have actually started building my credit score a lot sooner than I did, because it's so easy to get started. All you need to do as soon as you turn 18 is get yourself a credit card. Start putting a few little expenses on it like gas and pay that baby off in full at the end of each and every month. This way you pay no interest and prove to the lenders that you're a reliable borrower. Stage 4 is reducing your tax liability. Every dollar you earn has hidden costs. Of all the expenses, however, taxes can sting the most and take the biggest bite out of your money. No one likes the tax man. The good news is that tax efficient accounts can minimize how much tax you have to pay and maximize your savings. In my early 20s, my income was really starting to get eaten up by taxes, so I started looking for the best ways to save as much as possible. I then discovered if I opened up a retirement account, then I could save money I hadn't paid tax on. This is known as a 401k in the USA and a SIP in the UK. Of course, I will eventually have to pay tax on this, but as I'll be older, I'll be in a much lower tax bracket because I'll be earning less, so hence I should save quite a lot of money. But I didn't stop there. I opened another account that allowed me to save money that I'd paid tax on, but in the future I wouldn't have to pay tax on my capital gains. Or in other words, all the money that the money generated. This is called a Roth IRA in the USA and an ISA in the UK. I firmly believe that everyone should set up both of these accounts as soon as possible, as I know it really reduced my tax burden. So once you've built up these solid foundations, it's time to start expanding. Phase 3 is building multiple income streams. I like to think about it like this. Imagine Spider-Man is you, the platform is your life, and the skittle is your everyday job. If you get fired, guess what's happening? Now imagine this, Spider-Man is you, the platform's your life, but now you have multiple income streams. The stock market could crash, you could lose your job, or your side hustle could fail, but your life is supported by your other income streams. This makes it very hard for someone or something to come along and strike you out. A secure job is nowhere near as common as it once was, with the average person now working 12 jobs in a lifetime. There isn't one perfect solution for everyone, but something that has worked for me over the years is to pick side hustles that take advantage of my existing skills, as I don't have to learn something completely new. This will often end up being something you're passionate about as you develop the skills without even knowing it. Sometimes we can lean towards what will pay the most, but when looking to build long-term wealth, sustainability is important. So when waking up every morning, being passionate about your line of work is a great idea. As Richard Branson once told me over lunch, there is no greater thing you can do with your life and your work than follow your passions in a way that serves the world and you. Well, that's actually one of his most famous quotes, but he did say something along those lines. It was about 20 years ago, but one thing I do remember all the details about was the fantastic spaghetti bolognese made for me. There are many different side hustles you can start, such as affiliate marketing, e-commerce, becoming an influencer, drop shipping, and even good old-fashioned window cleaning, bin cleaning, driveway cleaning, photography, the list goes on. Years ago, I set out to answer this question by creating a video where I invested $100 into 5 different things. Today, I'm going to compare the results from those 5 investments that you can make from your laptop and try to finally answer the question once and for all. We're going to be using this grid to judge each one in these categories. First up, learning curve. This is how long it takes to learn the ins and outs of each method. Ideally, we want this to be as short as possible. Next is passive income potential, which is how much money an investment can earn for you passively while you still own it, without needing to sell it. Then there's tax efficiency, which refers to the specific tax advantages or benefits available for each type of investment that can help you pay less tax. After that, we have risk level, which is about how likely you are to lose money and how much the investment's value might go up or down. And finally, we're looking at the results. This is where I'll reveal my percentage return over the last 4 years and exactly how much my $100 investment is now worth. Before we jump in, please remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my own results and strategies that have worked for me over the years. Please also do your own research. Okay, first up is individual stocks. Individual stocks give you the chance to own a piece of a company you believe in. This can be really exciting because you're directly investing in businesses that you think will grow or succeed. For learning curve, I'm going to say this is high. If you want to be successful picking individual stocks, then it's not just a guessing game. You'll need to dig into the nitty-gritty of a company's fundamentals. This includes looking into the financials, who's leading the company, and how well known the brand is. When I invest in individual stocks, I look through income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. So when I invest in a stock, I'm in it for the long haul, which means at least 2 to 10 years. A great way to learn how to do this is by using an investing app with a demo account, which lets you play around with fake money until you're confident with your strategies. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is good. You see, when you own a stock, there are 2 ways you can make money. Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, you can sell it for more than you paid. Secondly, you can receive dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means you can receive money without ever selling your stock. This is essentially passive income. Now, for tax efficiency. This is great. If you use the right accounts, then you can reduce your tax burden. In the UK, these are called stocks and shares ISAs. You can set one up on most investing apps and any profits you make are safe from taxes. In the USA, there's something similar called a Roth IRA. These accounts work like a shield, protecting your profits from the taxman. While there are different rules depending on where you live, the idea is the same. Please bear in mind that I'm not a tax advisor and you should do your own research as everyone's circumstances are different. So what's the risk? This is definitely high. Back in 1995, during the dot-com boom, I got lucky and picked a few great stocks. I sold them at the right time and made a lot of money in a short period. But when the bubble burst, some of the other companies I'd invested in, ones that cost me very little, went out of business completely, even though I ended up making money overall. It just shows how risky investing in individual stocks can be, especially if you put all your money into just a few companies. If they fail, you could lose everything. So let's look at how much my $100 investment is now worth. Let me refresh your memory. Here's what I invested in. So I'm going to throw a dart at the board, and as you can see, I randomly selected 20 different stocks, and wherever the dart lands, that's what I'm going to invest in. Now I've just got to put on a blindfold. Okay, here we go.
Oh, you hit it.
Right, let's see what we got. And we've gone into Samsung. That investment is now worth $67.66. But don't forget my dividends. Over the 4 years, I made 10 cents. So that leaves me with a total of $67.76. That's a negative 32.34% return. This example perfectly shows how hit or miss individual stock investing really is. That dart could have just as easily landed on Apple, Microsoft or Nvidia. So let's have a look at how much I would have made if that dart had landed a bit differently. A $100 investment in Apple 4 years ago would now be worth $170. The same investment in Microsoft would be $188. And, drum roll please, Nvidia would be worth $908. Those stocks have boomed in recent years, and luckily I have some of those in my personal portfolio. But this just goes to show you can't just leave individual stock investing down to luck. You have to be strategic with your stock picks, and even then the market is unpredictable. If you want to try this out, just download Trading 212. It's a great app for beginner investors because it lets you use a demo account to practice trading with fake money. This way, you can learn how it all works without risking any real cash, just like I mentioned earlier. It also lets you set up a stocks and shares ISA if you're in the UK, which protects your investment returns from taxes. But again, I'm not a tax advisor, so please do your own research as everyone's situation is unique. Trading 212 also lets you buy fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a whole stock. That's how I was able to own just 0.07 of a Samsung stock, instead of having to buy an entire share. As I was going to mention Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free fractional share worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. Second is a real estate investment trust, otherwise known as a REIT. I know this one sounds pretty complicated, but it's actually quite cool. Imagine your friend collects $100 from 3,000 people, giving him $300,000. He then uses that money to buy a property, rents it out and shares the rental income with all 3,000 people who helped him buy it. That's a simple way to explain a REIT. It allows anyone to invest in properties without needing to buy one themselves. Think of it like you own the front door, someone else owns a window and a few others own the bricks, which means together everyone owns the entire property and shares in the profits. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate. And that's because getting started with REITs is much easier than buying physical property. It's not like you need a huge down payment or a mortgage, and there's no need to deal with agents or solicitors. However, you do need to understand how REITs work. They own things like offices, shopping centres, apartments, hotels and much more, and they get their income through rent. For passive income potential, I'm going to say this is great. REITs are well known for paying high dividends. This is because the law says they have to pass on at least 90% of all their profits to investors. So as long as the REIT is doing well and its properties are rented out, you can earn a steady stream of passive income. Most businesses sign long-term leases on their commercial properties. Therefore, most of the time, income is pretty stable and reliable. But of course, just keep in mind that your earnings depend on the REIT you pick and the types of properties it owns. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this down as great. This is because in many countries, REITs offer great tax benefits. For example, in the UK, you can hold REITs in a stocks and shares ISA, which means you don't have to pay taxes on your profits or dividends. In terms of risk, I'd have to say this is medium. REITs are generally less risky than buying a single property because they invest in multiple properties, spreading out the risk. However, they're not risk-free. If the real estate market takes a downturn, or if the REIT struggles to keep its properties rented, you might see both a drop in dividends and the value of the investment. So what's my investment worth now? Let's flash back to me making the investment 4 years ago. As I'm in the UK, I'm going to use the Trading 212 website to put $100 into a similar REIT. Ready for the moment of truth? Looking at my investment now, I can see it's worth $98.59. So that's a small loss of 1.41%. This shows that even though REITs are normally more stable than individual stocks, they're not guaranteed to perform well. My REIT likely underperformed because it invested in commercial real estate, which struggled during the pandemic. But that's not the end of the world, as I made $11.93 back in dividends, meaning I'm actually $10.52 up. So that's 10.52% up. Third is cryptocurrency. Imagine a form of digital money that isn't controlled by any government or bank. That's what cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are. These currencies run on the blockchain technology, which makes them secure, transparent, and almost impossible to counterfeit. Cryptocurrencies have created massive wealth for some people, with Bitcoin being the best performing asset of the last decade. But on the flip side, it's highly volatile and people have also lost fortunes. That's why I describe crypto as part investment and part speculation, and not for the faint-hearted. For learning curve, I'm going to say it's moderate. Crypto might sound complicated, but I'll break it down for you. First, you'll need a wallet. This is where you store your crypto. Think of it like a digital piggy bank, and there are different types. First are online wallets. These are easy to use, but you'll need to protect them with very strong passwords. Second are offline wallets, like hardware wallets. These are the safest because they're not connected to the internet. Next, you'll need to pick an exchange to buy and sell your crypto. Some popular ones are Coinbase and Binance. These platforms make it simple to trade, but make sure to choose a trustworthy exchange to avoid any issues. Then there's tokenomics. This just means understanding how the supply and demand of a coin works. For example, Bitcoin has a limited supply, which is why it's often called digital gold. For passive income potential, I'm going to also say this is moderate. Unlike stocks or REITs, crypto doesn't pay dividends, but there are ways to earn passive income. The first is called staking. This is when you lock up your crypto like Ethereum to help the system work and process transactions. In return, you get paid rewards, kind of like earning points for helping out. The second is yield farming. This is when you lend your crypto out to others and earn interest on it, similar to how a bank pays you interest when you save money with them. These methods can generate decent returns, but they do come with higher risks. If the coin's value drops or the platform you're using gets hacked, your income could disappear along with your crypto. That's why I personally don't mess with any of this and just hold mine on a Ledger wallet. For tax efficiency, I'm going to have to say this one is poor. Taxes are a tricky part of crypto investing. In many countries, even swapping one cryptocurrency for another counts as a taxable event. And if you earn staking rewards, those are also taxed as income. You also can't hold crypto in tax-advantaged accounts like ISAs or Roth IRAs, which makes it less tax efficient than stocks or REITs. In terms of risk, I'd have to say it's very high. Crypto is one of the most volatile investments out there. Prices can soar 1,000% in a year, but they can also crash just as fast. Personally, I just invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum as they're more established and often referred to as blue chip cryptocurrencies. Smaller altcoins can be far more risky. You've also got to be cautious of scams. Since crypto isn't regulated, if someone hacks your wallet or tricks you into sending your coins, there's no way to get them back. So keeping your crypto safe is just as important as learning how to invest in it. So what's my investment worth now? Let's rewind to when I made this investment 4 years ago. So I'm going to jump onto the most popular Bitcoin app, which is called Coinbase, and invest my $100 in Bitcoin and forget about it. Ready for the reveal? The $100 I invested in Bitcoin is now worth $652.24. That's a return of 552.24%. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's insane, and it is. But I have to stress that this kind of growth is not typical. Bitcoin has been the best performing asset of the last decade, but most cryptocurrencies don't see these kinds of returns. Many lose their value entirely. In my opinion, crypto is exciting and the technology behind it has the potential to transform industries. However, it's not for everyone. It's highly volatile, speculative, and requires a strong stomach to handle the wild price swings. Just remember, crypto is all about high risk and high reward. So if you're going to dive in, make sure you're doing your research and investing wisely. Fourth is gold. This is one of the oldest and most trusted ways to store and protect wealth. Gold is often called a safe haven because it's a great way to protect your wealth during uncertain times, like when inflation is rising or the economy is struggling. For learning curve, I'm going to have to say it's low. Learning how to invest in gold is pretty simple. You have two main options. First, physical gold. This includes gold bars and coins. Many people also think you can buy gold jewelry as investments, but you'll often pay more than the gold is actually worth because sellers add a markup for their craftsmanship. For this reason, I personally stick to gold coins. Just bear in mind, if you pick this option, then you'll have to store it somewhere safe. Second is gold ETFs. These are funds that let you invest in gold without physically owning it. For example, in the UK, you can use Trading 212 to buy shares in something like the iShares Physical Gold ETF. It's quick, easy, and you can buy or sell it with just a few clicks. Passive income potential is absolutely zero. Unlike stocks, REITs, or crypto, gold doesn't pay any passive income. It's not an income generating asset. It's purely a store of value. For tax efficiency, I'm going to put this as good. If you buy physical gold like gold coins or bars, the tax rules can be a little tricky. For example, in some countries, certain gold coins like the UK's Gold Britannias are considered legal tender, which means you don't pay capital gains tax when you sell them. However, this doesn't apply to all gold coins or bars, so you'll need to check the specific rules in your country. For gold ETFs, they're generally more straightforward. In countries like the UK, you can hold them in a stocks and shares ISA, which makes any profits completely tax-free. Interestingly, physical gold has another unique advantage. It can be used to transport wealth across borders discreetly. That said, this approach comes with risk, such as theft or legal restrictions on transporting large amounts of gold across borders. While it's not something I'd necessarily recommend, it's worth mentioning as a unique aspect of owning physical gold. In terms of risk, to think a little bit differently from everyone else. I mean, most people use their phones as a distraction, endlessly scrolling TikTok, killing their brain cells and becoming a slave to the system. This means that not only does using your phone correctly give you an advantage, it's actually putting others at a disadvantage.
Okay then, but how do I use it correctly?
Well, in order to cash in, I've put together 8 different tips so that you can spot opportunities while you're young and use the tools that you have at your disposal. Tip 1, meditation. Only joking. I'm not going to make some boring video about meditation and journaling. Let's be real, that's not going to make you a millionaire. But what will is. Tip 1, realizing there's so much fucking money out there. You have to really understand this, because if you don't, the harsh reality is you're going nowhere. You'll be one of those middle-aged people that never made it. You know, the ones that blame everything on everyone for their misfortune. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the blooming recession. You've got to face up to what's going on instead of wasting your early years wrapped up in excuses. But that's not you, and it certainly wasn't me. Even as a teenager, I knew that money was everything. everywhere. I would always see people with cash on their hip, nice cars and luxury homes. Instead of being angry about what other people had, I understood that there was enough wealth out there for me, and instead of hating on the rich and wealthy, I decided to learn from them. Hanging out with my mentor, a guy called Dave Monk, got me involved in a lot of high-level conversations, and seeing how the guys with money acted was so valuable. Believing there is so much money out there will really help you to focus on your goals and take responsibility for your own success. Just think, someone owns all of these buildings, and thinking like this can also allow you to celebrate the success of others and learn from their achievements rather than feeling threatened by them. You really don't have to reinvent the wheel to get rich. All you need to do is position yourself somewhere money is flowing. Just think how crypto was a huge craze in 2021 and how many people made fortunes, not by investing in it, but by launching their own projects. They didn't create the technology of crypto. However, they did notice the money pumping into the space and benefited from it. Sadly, most people don't realize that there's lots of money out there waiting to be claimed, and therefore will never spot these kinds of opportunities. Many even feel like they have to be really lucky or come up with a completely new business idea. In reality, it's so much more simple than that. Successful people often just identify a business that has worked really well in the past and then add their own unique twist to it. Think Uber. I mean, taxis have been around for years. It took Uber just to make it easier and cheaper for everyone to use them. Everything stems back to the core belief that money is everywhere, and once you let go of the idea that money is scarce, everything changes. Tip 2, don't focus on saving. This is the opposite to what many of these online gurus will tell you, but honestly, most of them have made their money the slow way. Believe it or not, I'm actually the opposite. Even though I'm old and grey, I was a millionaire in my 20s and I've lived a fantastic life and I haven't deprived myself of much. I mean, in my life, I've travelled to almost every country on the planet, become a pilot, was a champion race car driver, competed for my country in world championships, and built multi-million-dollar businesses. Have I been silly with my money? No, but I have used it strategically and had lots of fun along the way. When online gurus talk about investing $50 per week from the age of 16 into the S&P 500 at an average return of 7% per year, leading to you having over $1 million by the age of 65, I think they believe this actually excites people. Newsflash, it doesn't. But what should excite you is the free stock worth between $3,000 and $1,000 at public.com are currently giving you once you sign up and fund your account. I'll leave that link down below if you want to pick that up. Most people want to enjoy their money while they're young, just like I did. Don't get me wrong, of course it's very important to start investing small amounts when you're young and not leaving it until the last minute. But ideally, this should be money you don't even notice leaving your bank account and not your lifelong plan to become a millionaire. Investing all of your baby money into the stock market or something you can't control is the worst move that you can make, as it locks up all of your money for testing out side hustles and business ideas. Those are the real ways to make big money. Now, having an emergency fund of 6 months living expenses does take the edge off, and it allows you to take calculated risk without worrying too much. So I'm not fully against saving, I'm just against hoarding cash, as I've never known anyone to make a lot of money in their younger years when they take this approach. So the truth of this lies somewhere in the middle. Use both the fast and the slow lanes. Don't be a prolific saver that denies himself a Starbucks coffee if that's what makes you happy. If you put savings over small things that make your life more enjoyable, then you are giving your money too much power over you. But equally, don't go splashing your cash on pointless things and leave yourself with nothing to invest in your future. Pick what matters most to you and use your money strategically. Tip 3, quit drinking. Look, I get it. When you're young, drinking is almost a rite of passage. But if you follow what most people do, then you get what most people have. Nothing. As a senior guy, I can tell you from experience, as you get older, you don't have as much energy. Honestly, I'd give up all my money to have a young body again. It's your greatest asset, and if that doesn't illustrate how valuable it is, then nothing will. I say this because most people waste years of their life drinking. This makes zero sense to me, as alcohol is a depressant. Why numb your brain and your body when it's at its peak performance? Personally,
I've never been much of a drinker. I realised early on that having the balls to say no gave people a lot more respect for me, and I found enjoyment in other much more productive hobbies like golf.
I know a lot of people will say they just want to have fun, and I get that, but first fix the money issue. Get as much of it as you can, and then you can drink as much as you want, but you'll probably find you still want to keep growing your wealth. Once you realise how much fun it is having money and the freedom it gives you, you'll unlock a whole new level to life. Drinking is just an expensive way to distract yourself from the bigger picture whilst losing time, and on top of that, how can we forget the best part? Feeling terrible the next day. What better way to hold you back from your dreams? Once I'd achieved my goals, I loosened the reins a little and have the odd cold beer now and then, but rarely do I have more than 1 or 2. Yeah, no more than 2, I fall over. Tip 4, buy a luxury watch. You might be thinking, why do I need a luxury watch in the 21st century when I can just check the time on my phone? I used to think the exact same thing. I've never been materialistic, which led me to overlooking watches, which now, knowing what I know, was a mistake. There are 3 main things a luxury watch can do for you. Firstly, it can spark conversations with other successful and wealthy individuals. This could lead to valuable networking opportunities and potential business partnerships. Another great way to chat with like-minded people is joining the free Strike It Big Discord group. I'll leave a link in the description below. Secondly, many luxury watches are considered valuable assets that can appreciate over time. If you invest in a high quality watch, it could potentially provide a solid return on investment. As with any investment, it's important to do your research and choose a luxury watch that has a good chance of appreciating in value over time. As a general rule, still Rolex watches reliably hold or appreciate in value. This includes in particular the GMT Master 2 with its famous 2-coloured bezel, the Cosmograph Daytona, and the ever popular Submariner. Thirdly, they can be a great way to transport your wealth across borders. Now, technically, you do have to declare that you're bringing these into a different country. However, I bet the majority of people don't do this. If you entered another country with a wad of cash, then they'd probably ask you some questions. But I'm willing to bet that if you entered the same country with $1 million worth of watches, they wouldn't bat an eyelid.
Just be careful where you wear these watches, as they're also very easy to steal. You have to learn to move in a different way. Don't get cocky and think you're untouchable, as someone is bound to pull up on a motorbike and take your watch from you.
Trust me, luxury watches are not something to be overlooked, and even if the price goes down, you never really lose all of your money, and the status is worth it. Unlike Lambos. It's also getting progressively harder to buy a nice watch at retail price. If I'd started investing in watches earlier, I'd be sitting on a whole lot of equity. So building a good relationship with an authorised dealer while you're young is what future millionaires should be doing. Tip 5. Destroy your ego. There are so many arrogant people out there that think they know everything. They aren't interested in learning, even when someone more successful than them is spelling out the correct way of doing things. I mean, I was watching Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares the other day, and these restaurant owners were in dire need of help. Their business was failing, and they called in Gordon to turn their luck around. He came into their restaurant and tried to do exactly that, but their egos were so big that they couldn't take anything on board. It's actually shocking how stubborn some people are. Of course, be proud of what you do. However, you need to be able to separate pride from your ego. Take some time to self-reflect. Really go into the depth of your weaknesses and form a strategic plan of how to improve them. There are thousands of YouTube videos where experts teach you what you need to know for free. For example, if communication is a weak spot, then there are videos on public speaking and storytelling that you can take full advantage of. Now, learning high-value skills does more than just paying the bills. They compound into every aspect of your business and social life.
I used to find what they taught in school to be boring and nonsensical. With my goals and vision, it just didn't make sense for me to waste my time learning about algebra and other things. So I went out and bought my own books about business. I used all my free time to teach myself all the basics of how to start and run a company. I then combined everything I learnt with my passion for RC models and
started my own company, which went on to make millions and make me the man I am today. Tip 6, build a credit score. If you haven't got a trust fund, then you're going to need to leverage good debt in order to become a millionaire at a young age. And without a good credit score, that's going to be near impossible. I was told when I was younger this famous saying, never a borrower or a lender be, which is completely wrong. I have a feeling this was made up by powerful people years ago to stop you leveraging your way to success. Borrowing money can be one of the best ways to elevate yourself past your born class status. But due to my fear of debt, I never really took advantage of it. This is a personal regret of mine, and I wish I'd borrowed more when I was younger. It really could have helped me leverage my wealth much faster. Now, this isn't for everyone and takes a strong, clear mind to manage, but can work extremely well if done correctly. A credit score is basically a trust and reliability rating used by banks to judge the risk of lending you money. Think of it like this. If every time your mate lends you $5 and you give it back when or before you said you would, then there's a much bigger chance that your mate's going to lend you $100 if you ever need it, because he can trust you. A good credit score is priceless. In a millionaire when you're younger is far better. Take it from someone who's experienced both. And no, I wasn't born into a rich family. Quite the opposite. The odds were stacked against me. I was a ginger, working class kid without a penny to his name. So if I can build wealth in a relatively short amount of time, then you can too. This isn't going to be one of those generic videos about investing in index funds and getting rich when you're old and grey. I'm going to be taking you through the actual moments in my life where I uncovered the truth behind building wealth from nothing. From the moment you step foot into school, they try to control your ambition. And one memory that stands out to me was sitting in a lecture theatre just like this one. The teacher asked us to write down our dream job, our dream car and our dream house. I was really excited, so I wrote down business owner, Ferrari and mansion. She then said life is going to be tough, so I'm going to break the hard news to you now. You're probably going to have none of those things, so be realistic and lower your expectations. I thought to myself, of course I will. I'll have all of those things, and I've carried that attitude for the whole of my life. If you allow the system to crush your hopes and dreams, you'll never be able to create wealth from nothing. Look, this isn't some fluffy mindset BS. If you can't even believe something is possible, then how on earth are you going to do the work required to become wealthy? Most people give in to the pressure of being realistic and end up joining the crowd, and then they discourage the next generation from following their hopes and dreams. But you can decide to break the cycle, just like me in that lecture theatre. So if you want to do this, then you firstly need to be very careful about who you listen to. I'm not just referring to those fake gurus on social media. I'm also talking about the people in your life who give their unsolicited advice. While your friends and parents may have good intentions, if they haven't built a large sum of wealth, why would you listen to them when it comes to making money? Secondly, you need to learn to think from multiple angles when trying to solve problems. Most people will come across an obstacle that they've been told is impossible for them to conquer and give up at the first sign of trouble. The more you let these kinds of challenges beat you, the harder it is to break out of the herd, as you're cementing to yourself that you aren't good enough. Whenever I come across a challenge, I think of at least 10 different solutions and then decide on the best way forward. If one doesn't work, then I just try the next one, and so on until I'm successful. Thirdly, you need to step outside your comfort zone. Look, if Harry Potter stayed in the cupboard under the stairs, then he would never have defeated Voldemort. Sorry for the spoilers, but it's so true. Putting yourself in challenging situations helps you grow and improve more than anything else I've ever experienced. When I first joined the workforce as a carpenter's apprentice, I was so excited. It was the job I really wanted to do, but unfortunately, the manager took a bit of a dislike to me and he bullied me practically every day, giving me all the rubbish jobs. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it anymore. I came home that night, sat on my couch, and I looked around the room and thought to myself, what have I got to lose? I've got no child or wife to look after. I'm 20 years old. I've got to make this decision. Sure, I'm scared of quitting a job. Of course you're scared, but I knew that was the best thing for me. So I quit the very next day. If If you're young and have few responsibilities, it's a clear choice to take more risk to increase your income. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you should go and invest all your money in crypto. The risks should be calculated. Looking back, I didn't realise at the time, but the biggest risk in my life would have been staying at that dead-end job. For me, increasing my income meant starting my own business. However, if this isn't for you, you could always start a side hustle or upgrade your job every couple of years. Studies have actually found that you're more likely to build wealth faster by job hopping rather than staying loyal to one company. However, if your goal is to build wealth as fast as possible and you decide to pick the employee route, then you need to choose a career that isn't dependent on how many hours you work, but on the results you achieve.
After lots of hard work and many sleepless nights, I managed to open my model shop. It was a huge success. I was reinvesting all of my money in the business to help it grow, that I didn't have time to think about investing. One day, I decided to take on a work experience lad for 2 weeks. And on the first day, all he kept banging on about was stocks and shares. And I thought, what does a 14-year-old know about stocks and shares? Anyway, he mentioned this one particular stock that he said was going to go to the moon. He said, I've got £1,000 and I'm going to pile it all in because I'm so confident. And I thought, well, if he's that confident, I think I'll